Welcome to Love and Live Abundantly. I'm Ilona.
I'm Bill. Do you want to love more effectively?
Do you want to live fully and love more courageously?
We talk about what all that means
and how you can achieve it.
Join us. Well, hello. This is Bill Mock again, and Ilana's on with us, but right now she's taking care of some technical details, and so it's up to me to get this session started. And as you may know, if you've been listening to us, we sometimes have a hard time remembering what we said last week, but somebody took notes. Kind of unusual for us, but we're ready. And it wasn't that hard to remember because last time we were here, we were talking about depression. We were talking about suicidality and and what to do about that and what it looks like and where it comes from. And in very general terms, we talked about that. And we actually, in very general terms, talked about suicide prevention and helping to prevent the kind of depression that leads to that. But what we promised last time was this time to pick it up where we left off. This will be a little unusual for us. And to give more specific kinds of advice for folks who have somebody in your life. If you have somebody in your life who is seemingly depressed, has been blue or down or out of sorts for a while, and who worries you, about whom you have some concern, and maybe even you've had some indication that maybe they may be suffering from some sense of wanting to harm themselves. What do you do? Well, generalities and platitudes are all well and good, but we thought this time we would move to the next level, which is what are some specific kinds of things that you can do to reach out to that individual and to be supportive of them and to help them through this terrible time. So, I got that right, Ilona, right?
You did. It was perfect. Thank you for that.
I've done good, as they say.
Wonderful intro. Yeah, there are so many people who, die by suicide, and often, the people who love them are left wondering if there was something that they could do to have, to stop it. Oftentimes, sometimes you can't. If somebody is, has that mindset. However, we're going to be talking today about ways that you can help your person. And, for me, like some instances, like I have my neighbor and his brother died by suicide, and he had noticed that his brother kept giving things away. He was, giving away his belongings, and then he had finally given him his truck. And his brother had said to him, "No, I don't want the truck. I want my brother. I don't want my brother to go anywhere." And, back then there were no resources. Now you can call 988 and, and have somebody come out to help you, navigate some of those things. But also in the instance, in case you don't have 988 near you, I'm a big advocate for 988. I work for them. There's tons of resources out there. However, in the interim, or maybe it's not in your area yet, how do you handle that? And he had no clue. This was like 20, 30 years ago when people didn't talk about it. We don't talk about it now. Back then it was even more hush hush. And, and so one thing I would say is, hey, you don't really want to leave them alone, right? You want to stay with them and, let them know that they're important, connect with them, talk with them, ask them if they're thinking about dying by suicide. Everybody is so afraid of that question, yet it's the most important question. to to ask somebody to really see where they're at, and don't flip out if they say yes. Keep connecting, keep asking questions, let them know that they matter, and and that you want them around.
Well, that that was a general kind of thing that we talked about, but you were last time we talked about, well, connection is so important, the human connection is so important that people that depressed tend to start isolating themselves, or they not only feel isolated, but they start isolating themselves step by step by step. They also have a delusion sometimes that they're the ones in pain and nobody else will be hurt by their actions. And in fact, they manage to convince themselves that everybody else would be better off if they did that, if they were gone, if they weren't in the picture. And as you say, reach out, touch them, make sure that they understand that that's not your reality, that in fact you would grieve awfully and often and long because of they're doing something like that to themselves. That you would, I mean, that kind of honesty is something that sometimes people shy away from because there is that a belief among folks that if I talk about it somehow with the person who's suicidal, that that'll make it happen, that somehow I'll tip it or I'll trigger something and I'll be responsible. But if we're all just quiet about it and just tippy toe around it and jolly folks up and be nice to them and send them pizzas or whatever we think will get them out of it. And that if we don't do that, if we address them directly and to say, as you said, this would kill me. This would be awful for me. This would be a terrible loss for me. Don't you dare suggest that I won't be harmed by your absence. Right? Yeah, you got to contact them, but you got to do contact them around this prevailing issue. The other thing you got to do is you've said this, I can't tell you how many times, is that we really have to go, once we get them in that dialogue, then we got to start talking about, okay, people don't just up one day and say, you know what, boring day, I think I'll commit suicide. They do it behind a fairly long history of pretty profound depression. So maybe the next step then, once I've got them talking about it, is to help intervene with their depression, see what we can do about that. And you know what that means. You're talking about 988, but there are mental health crisis lines all over the country. There's always 911. There's always the local crisis. There's always a suicide line in your area that you can tap into. And around depression, making a quick and dirty referral to the latest mental health facility and asking them if they'll go with you, and the two of you going in there and saying, we've got a problem, and our problem is my concern that they're very depressed and they're thinking about suicide, and now that scares me, and making sure they get hooked up if that's possible. I mean,
Here in Arizona, Bill, we actually have an organization. They just opened up, I want to say, the last couple of years. It's called Mind 24/7. And
say
it's
that
like
again. What is it called?
Mind
Mind.
24/7.
Yeah.
They're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And you
Who would
can
have
go.
guessed given the name and all?
I know, a clear giveaway. Um, but you can go in there at any time. Let's say you do have somebody who is thinking about uh, death by suicide. You go in there and they do a behavioral health evaluation. They do a mental health
Mhm.
evaluation of you. And so it's really a great resource. That was something that I learned when I worked for Crisis as well. And there's a couple of them in the Valley, and I would really love for that to be like a normal thing throughout. the US, it's beautiful. They take you in, they evaluate you. You don't have to stay. However, it's to your benefit, and they do a complete evaluation and they set you up with resources. And I feel like even any of the suicide hotlines can give you those kinds of resources, right? Um, to connect with what it is that you need exactly. I don't know whether it's because people aren't informed or they don't know, or maybe they don't want to take on the responsibility of, right, it's a lot. If you know that somebody wants to die by suicide and you're the only person, it can be very heavy, to
Mhm.
handle that. But there are tons of resources out. Like you said, call 911. If anything, they can direct you to something in your area where your people can get the resources that they need. And I really feel like this has been a very common thought for me for quite a few months now. And it's like, stop being busy in your own life and check on your people.
Mhm.
We say, oh, we're so busy, we're so busy, we're so busy. Yet we
We
don't,
lost touch. Yeah.
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 And I think that, with my broken leg experience, that it really brought that to life for me with people. And because I had people who like claimed to be some of my best friends who didn't even call to ask me. And it's like, you're so busy in your life. Like, one of my friends, I'm her daughter's godmother. And she knew that I broke my leg and she never was said anything. And it's like, for the life of me, I don't understand it. And I think to start to pay attention, because when that person does die by suicide, you're going to carry around a lot of guilt because you never took the time to reach out to those people.
Yeah, you don't want to be in a position of saying, I wish I had.
Yeah, I really feel that, with my cousin who lives with a mental illness. He has attempted suicide numerous times, and yet there's people in my family that still don't reach out to him. And it's like, if he dies by suicide, then you get to feel guilty. I but not that I'm shaming them or saying that it's wrong, but do something different. Pay attention, reach out, have a conversation, let them know that they matter, especially if they're feeling depressed. You know,
Well, I'm gonna cut your family a little slack here. Not that they need an apologist, but I get that people get busy and they are inattentive and uncaring sometimes. But also, I think what happens is that there is a thread inside of people that says that's scary, and I'm not going to get close to it. And it takes a special kind of knowledge and courage to to approach that. I mean, it is a scary thing that somebody else's mortality, somebody else's pain, somebody else's depression. I don't want to look at that. And if I don't look at that, it won't be scary. And if I roll into very human denial, and what's the old saying? Denial is not a river. But if I deny it, it isn't happening. And then, as you say, if it does happen, then I can feel doubly guilty. So I don't want to do that. I, I I have people show up in my office who are not depressed or are feeling concerned about their own depression or hurting themselves, but they've lost somebody through that. And they always have the same kind of questions. What should I have done? If only I had. I thought that it was because they lost their job and they would get over it. Or I thought that they had lost a family member and that, it would go away. That, time heals all. What could I have done? And it speaks to something you talk about all the time. And as we spend a lot of time telling people how to change tires, but not how to deal with these very human kinds of things. It would really be nice if we were more forthcoming about human emotions. And well, we're not. Um, Also, the one damning thing I have to share this. After our last session, I was struck by a memory, and that is that of the people over the years who came in to see me who had lost somebody to suicide, about half of them said, that these folks had tried to commit suicide so many times, and that they had arranged it in such a way that they would always get stopped before they did it. So we just thought that they were calling for attention.
Hmm.
And so this last time we ignored them. Well, I think the biggest mistake we can make, and I really, if there's one piece of advice I want to give to you, to anybody who's listening to this, don't ever assume that they don't mean it. If you hear, think, get a hint, see a note, skywrite, whatever tells you that there may be something like suicide in the works here, believe it, take it seriously, and take the necessary steps every single time. Two benefits. One, if they really are thinking about committing suicide, you may just save their life. That's a big one. And two, if they're using a threat of suicide as a way of getting attention, screaming for help for something, well, maybe you'll help them to find a better way to ask for help by getting them perforce through a threat of suicide referred to the good place. So never, never, ever, ever. It's never a good strategy to assume that they're just doing this as a ploy because they want hysterical attention, or because they're screaming for help, or because they're dramatic, or whatever the other kind of words that you use in your head to dismiss it. Never dismiss it. And man, when they taught us in therapy school, and there is such a thing as therapy school, that was the mantra. We had that stitched on a sampler and hung on the wall. Always believe it's real. They always believe they're telling you the truth.
For me, it's hard to understand somebody's thinking on, oh, they're just doing it to get attention. And I guess because of the work that I've done, right? I'm immersed in it in all different ways and levels. And I think the overall picture is really, like you said, is we're not taught to express our emotions. And if we were, or when we are, because I'm clear that that is going to become more normal, as time comes. And one of the reasons I feel is my reasoning behind doing the podcast, talking about this kind of stuff. It's so important because, I mean, it's in all of us, right? We've trained ourselves to, push our feelings under the rug, that it's become such a normal thing. And the reality is that not everybody's brain works the same, and not everybody's brain can handle things, or their processing system, the same way. We're not all built the same way, and some people are not able to take the stresses of life the way that we do. Um, you know, even for me, I've done tons of work. And when I broke my leg, I was depressed, right? But I was very well aware of keeping myself in that positive mindset and pushing myself to not really stay there for very long,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. But not everybody's given those tools, right? I've been given a bunch of tools over the years. I've learned and I've grown and I've been open to learning and learning to how to express my emotions. So I really, I really do feel like we get to make that more of a conversation to have, expressing how we feel, and that when somebody is, thinking about dying by suicide, don't be afraid. You don't need a degree, you don't need years of tools and techniques. You just need to let them know that you care about them, and reach out for the resources that are available out there to help you, guide them through it. I feel like there's a burden, there's, because you're dealing with somebody's life, right? And so you don't have to do it on your own. You don't have to figure it all out. You just stay with the person and you let them know that you care about them, that they matter, that you want them around, and and you're there to help them find the resources that they need.
One of the things that people would do who were profoundly depressed and thinking about suicide, who had been referred to me, one of the things that they would do, say to me is, um, this also happens in relationship counseling. Listen, if I tell you something, will you keep it a secret? And you'll find this just in your friendships and in your personal connections, that you'll reach out to somebody and say, look, you've been looking real depressed to me. You've been looking, I'm a little bit scared, I'm a little bit worried about you. And they'll say, well, let me tell you something, but I'd rather nobody else knew. Well, I'm going to give you a really good piece of advice right now, and that is never give in to a promise. Never give them a promise that you'll keep their secret. Because for sure, their secret is one of the things that's got them in this terrible mess. I mean, I talk to people who get to this place, and it's real clear that they didn't have a 3-day depression that led to a decision to kill themselves. This has been going on for a very long time, and they've been keeping the secret. And we say to them, well, why didn't you reach out? And the answer is always the same. I thought people would think less of me. I was ashamed of it. I didn't want people to think I was crazy or weak or whatever or insane. So I kept it a secret. I thought it would go away, but it just kept getting worse. I believed that anybody else in my circumstance would have been able to handle it, so I was ashamed that I couldn't. That's the kind of thing that happens. And if you want to reach out to somebody, you have to do it in such a way, or it's helpful if you do it in such a way that they can hear that you don't think what's going on with them is shameful. It's sad. It's painful. It's painful to you because you don't want them suffering from that. But it is a thing that we should talk about, and not a thing that makes me think worse of you. No, that's the difficulty. If they can get past that, if they can get past their own barrier, thinking that they should be able to handle it themselves, because strong people can. If we can help them to get past that and to see this glitch in their life as an entirely human moment, that's the thing we have to do. And that only happens if you're, I'm sorry about this as a technical term, but you have to be a persistent pain in the ass, because they will dismiss you. They will move you away. They'll say they're okay. I'm all right. How you feeling? All right. You want to talk about it? No. Have you been feeling depressed? Not really. And man, when they cut you off like that, that's when you have to be the PPA. How about that? We've invented a new term, persistent pain in the ass. Yeah. Yeah, you really have to keep coming after it. I mean, we talked last week about being connected and that they need connections and that part of their depression is to isolate themselves. Well, I don't know how many other people they've been able to cut off, but they will not cut me off. I have a circle of friends that I contact all the time, consistently, routinely, once a week or more. And why do I do that? Well, because it makes me feel better, but also because I love them and because I don't want them suffering in silence without somebody calling up and saying very simply, "How's it going? You okay?" The other thing I got to tell you that you need to do if you see somebody in your life that's scaring you, you best put that up front. Trust your instincts.
Yeah.
I think, I think you're depressed. You're acting depressed. This is scaring the hell out of me. And you're acting like people I've known that harmed themselves. Are you thinking of harming yourself? Yeah. Well, and if they're
think
not, give them an opportunity to prove it.
Yeah, I think that's really important that, if you really feel, if you have that gut instinct, like something is really wrong, then
Trust it.
go regardless of, the answers to your questions that you're asking them. Like regardless of what they're saying, if they deny it, but you still feel, hey, something's going on, um, you can as well call and reach out for those resources and know how to help your friend. You just tell them, hey, listen, my friend is in crisis. I feel like he's going to hurt himself or she's going to hurt himself. What can I do? And it doesn't have to be the person necessarily. I mean, I know when I worked in crisis that we had brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, friends calling for their loved ones because they were concerned about them. And always follow your gut, because if you don't, you may
I think sometimes people um, are reluctant or back off being that PPA, that persistent pain in the ass, that maybe saves somebody's life because they don't want to be cut off or aggravate the other person. But I can tell you this, that throughout my life, I've been a PPA and proud of it. And I have never, I'm lots of ways I've lost friends from my otherwise stupid behavior. I have never lost a friend by caring too much for them. So even if you're wrong, even if you got it wrong, even if you're misreading the science, that only helps to strengthen the bond and anneal it. So yeah, you go ahead and do that. Um, you don't want to lose a friend. The other thing I got to tell you that I, first, people have it just doesn't occur to people to ask, and that's a simple question: what can I do? Wow, somebody have actually asked you that question. What can I do? Somebody really cares. Because you start getting depressed and you think you're alone in your misery. You think that nobody cares. That what is the old song? Everybody hates me. I think I'll go in the garden and eat worms. That I know it's a dumb song, but it you've never you've never heard that song. Gee, what a cultural deficit. Anyway, that's part of the depression thing is that feeling somehow that nobody can care about, understand, ever feel what I'm feeling right now. And when you reach into that cesspool of anger and angst and pain that they have, and it doesn't burn you to death, and you're not afraid of it, and you hold them anyway, you might be keeping them away from the tripwire. You started saying something that I do, and when people come into me and they're saying I'm depressed and I've been thinking about suicide, Besides that, I'm not going to keep your secret. Full disclosure, right up front, you just tripped something in me. And that is, I am going to call every single human being that you know in your circle. I now have information about your family members, your friends. I'm going to call your neighbors. If you got a dog, I'm going to tell them. That's it. Nothing is more important than your precious life. And if you want to report me to a licensure board because I broke your confidentiality, yeah, life always trumps confidentiality or privacy.
Yep, I agree.
Okay? I mean, if you were ever that depressed, and I've seen you depressed, but because of your leg, but if you were ever that depressed, I would be on the phone with your neighbors, with your mom who lives back there. I would be there. I'd jump on a plane and I'd be there. I'd drag Linda along with me. Not going to happen. Not when the resources are available.
Yeah. And I feel like too, you're just not in your right state of mind when you're having those thoughts. And it's like going down that spiral, right? And you just stuck right now. However, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and there are a ton of reasons for you to stay around, and to not end your life. You know, we all have struggles and not so great times, but in reality, it's a small amount of time compared to what you can create if you get the resources that you really need, if you get the help. I feel like there's such a the stigma around even going to a therapist or a coach, or to overcome some of those things. And well, we need to get over that. We need to get over that. And like, everybody would benefit from the resources that we offer people and that are out there. It's human emotion. It's in all of us. And we need to celebrate that. It's a beautiful thing to feel your emotions and express them, and not shoving them down. um, I feel like it's even barbaric, right? To not want to not think that we shouldn't be able to share our feelings. Now, I know things were different generations ago. They didn't. It was survival of the fittest, right? They didn't talk about their emotions and feelings for the most part. It was whatever people needed to do to survive. Today, I feel like there's more communication around us expressing our feelings. Is it perfect? By no means, no, but we're much better off than we were 30, 40 years ago. And so, lean into that, and you're not alone, you know.
Yeah. So I'm noticing from the clock on the wall. By the way, full disclosure for folks out there, Ilona and I have been struggling with one of the dumbest things ever in the world is how do you know that a half hour has passed? And I checked in with my 14-year-old granddaughter, who can solve all these electronic problems for me, and she reminded me that I have a stopwatch on my phone. And I notice on the stopwatch on my phone that we have 57 seconds left in our half hour. So can I suggest that
So it's
we,
that you have to remember to start the stopwatch
there
too,
is
right?
that, push the button. But can I suggest that next time, I mean, I really don't think that we've exhausted this topic of precise and exact kinds of interventions that you can do with the people in your life. So I'd like for us to pick this up next time if that works for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I'll
Sounds
see
good.
you.
Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. If you have any questions for us, or you'd like us to discuss anything specific, please let us know. You can email us at hello@truthbetold.world. Hello@truthbetold.world. Thanks for joining us. See See you next time.